Hello and welcome to episode 10 of
The Complete Charting Guide.
It is recommended you watch video 7, the fundamentals of placing notes, before watching this one. Alright, so I'm going to start off this video with my real guitar so I can show you how these gem types equate to real notes on the guitar. Because really what these gem types are is different ways of playing the same note. So let's start with strums. Literally a strum is I'm going to place down my finger on the correct fret and then use my pick to pluck the string and make it vibrate, which will make a sound. In Moonscraper, a strum looks like this, just the normal gem type. Next are HOPOs, which stands for hammer-ons and pull-offs. Hammer-ons are like this. If I strum my note, it is still vibrating, so why don't I just move my finger without strumming again? Now I've done a hammer-on, and I can go downwards as well. And you can go up and down at the same time. In Moonscraper, HOPOs look like this. They have a white center that is glowing. Finally is taps, which I won't need my pick for. And a tap is basically, instead of strumming my note to get the vibration, I will just slap it really hard with my strumming hand, and that will vibrate the string that way. If you're doing HOPOs during taps, you would chart it as all taps, and all these count as tapping. In Moonscraper, taps look like this. They are this transparent, ghostly note. Let's review really quick. All the gem types are strums, HOPOs, and taps. Let's play lick with all of them. And notice with the HOPOs, I have to strum to make the string vibrate first. And that's your 3 gem types. So let's go back to Moonscraper. I lied. Actually, next I will show you how to play those gem types on a plastic guitar. First of all is strums. Same thing as real guitar. You place your finger down on one of these frets and then press the strum bar, and that will count as hitting it. For tap notes, all you have to do is touch the correct fret. No strumming required at all. Just touch the fret and it will count as hitting the note. And HOPOs are a bit more complicated. If you remember what I mentioned about HOPOs, you have to have the string vibrating already in order for the next HOPO to make any sound. So in the same way, that's how HOPOs work in game. If you missed the previous note, then the HOPO will act like it's a strum. So you have to strum it in order to hit it. If you did hit the last note, then you can just tap away and it will act like a tap. Alright, so let's go over how to place down each of these note types. Obviously, you need to select the note tool, and this box in the bottom left is going to be your note types. You have forced, and you have taps, which you can do with F and T. Doing taps is pretty easy. You just tap T, and there you go. Place down your taps wherever you want. For forced notes, it's a bit more complicated. Whether a gem is a strum or a HOPO is called forcing. If I have a gem within 1/12 of that other gem, it will automatically be a HOPO. If it is outside of that range, then it will not be a HOPO, it will be a strum. When you click on this forcing button, it will invert that rule. So now if I place it next to this other note, it will be a strum, and if I place it far away, it will be a HOPO. So there's 2 exceptions to this rule. If you are placing down the very first gem in the entire chart, then it cannot be a HOPO no matter what. And remember, that's because when we were looking at the real guitar, if you don't strum first, then there's no vibrating string, so just moving your finger won't do anything. So you can't have a HOPO without strumming first. The other exception is if you have 2 gems of the same color in a row, then you cannot have them be HOPOs no matter what, because you can't move your finger to the same note and get a different sound. That wouldn't make sense for a hammer-on or a pull-off. If you're annoyed by this buzzing, I am very annoyed by it too. I hope to get my shit fixed soon. Anyway, it's finally time to get into the meat of this topic. There are 3 main ways to use your gem types. 1 is to make the chart more readable, 2 is to make the chart more playable, and 3 is to represent the sound more accurately. I could explain to you each of the 3 uses for the gem types, but I think instead I'm just going to start doing these examples and I'll explain them along the way. So let's do the first example. Alright, seems like ascending to me. Now, there is a problem here, and that is that this goes up again, but I've run out of space. So I'm going to do what's the most forced thing here, which is this. Now, what I mean by the most forced is if I want to preserve the most amount of space down here for wrapping, then this is the best shape to use. Like, I could move this down, but then all my notes which are lower have to be in this area, and that's just going to be impossible. Or I could stretch it out like this, and again, it's the same problem. So I want this to be blue, orange, blue to give myself the most amount of space. So if I add the notes back, the problem here is you only have 4 notes. You can do 2 and 2, and that's your only option. What you can do is count this final blue right here as part of your wrapping section. So now you have 5, and you can do 3 plus 2 or 2 plus 3. I don't like 2 plus 3, and let me show you why. And that is because at the very start, following your red line upwards is not nearly as easy as it would be if I had 3 plus 2. You can see it's just a clear indication that you're supposed to be looking upwards, and this is the outlier. Whereas if you put the outlier at the very beginning, then you're kind of seeing this up, down, up shape, which you don't want. So let's keep it as 3 plus 2 and move on. Seems like it's descending. Oh, but it goes down again. So we have the exact same situation, but upside down, basically. Oh, this one's a bit different. Because instead of it being the last note, it is the first note of this phrase that needs to get moved. You don't want to have it be yellow or blue. Putting it as red or green is going to make your lines all messed up. So your only option is orange. Even though it's a little bit funky, it'll be the best we can do for this. And don't forget about sustains. It seems like this would be a good spot for a sustain right here. It's a bit short. It's on the short side, but it will add a lot. There you go. I'd say that's done. Now, as for your HOPOs and taps and strums, now you don't want to use taps unless your guitar is actually tapping. So we only want to stick with strums and HOPOs for this section. The default Moonscraper forcing seems to be working wonders here because these are the notes I would want HOPOs and all the rest I'd want strums. So if we think back to our 3 uses for the gem types, which is readability, playability, and representing the sound accurately, here we are representing the sound accurately. Let's check this. Yep, that seems right. Let's move on. Alright, let's do the wrapping first and think about the forcing later. It's all ascending, ascending. Now this is the exact same situation as in the first one. So let's look at what we did there. We did 3 and then 3 like that. So let's copy that exactly. Right, is that how it was? Yep. Alright. And then looks like it goes back up. Actually, no, it does not. It goes down. So I'm going to move these up. Delete these for now. And we'll do something like this. Should be fine. There we go. Oh, but now we have a major problem. And that is that these cannot be down here. They need to be right here. Now, why is that a problem? Well, if I scroll backwards, if you try to follow a red line through this, you would be going straight right here, but you want it to be going down. This just does not accurately represent the audio at all. So, the main thing I want here is I want these 2 to be higher. But now everything else is screwed up. So let's maybe move this down to red on both sides because these are the same pitch. And kind of I'm looking at this whole shape as one unit. So if I move this yellow up or move these around, I want to keep them the same for symmetry. And then the first one, this red, blue, I don't like that, so maybe I'll do this. Set this shape and this shape are identical, just moved around, and let's listen to it now. Now it's still really ugly. And it's the main offender is this part, because if you're thinking about looking at this in chunks and just sections, you've got this section of 3, this section of 4, and then you're going to be seeing it as this section of 3 and 5. But we don't want the player to see that. We want them to see this whole thing as 5. The way we're going to fix this is we are going to use strums in here to increase the readability of this section. And the way you do that is you're going to place down strums on the first gem in each chunk that you want the player to see. So obviously the first note should maybe be a strum, maybe this one, and of course the main culprit, we'll place it right in the middle here, and maybe another one right here. Now let's listen to it again. Just see how huge, massive difference that makes. Absolutely. And I think that's the best we can do, even though it is kind of ugly and unconventional. There's no better way to wrap this section, and sometimes that's just how it goes. It'll look a little ugly, but as long as you have your strums placed in there, like this, to increase the readability, it will still work pretty well. This one is all strums on guitar, just to focus on, in order to increase readability and playability, you want these HOPOs to be here instead of accurately representing the audio. Because if you were going to accurately represent it, you would just make these all strums. But now you've lost the readability from having those strums and HOPOs mixed together, and you also lose a lot of playability because the player has to be strumming away this whole time, which is annoying. This last section doesn't really matter. So in this first example, we focused on representing the sound accurately, where these are strums and these are HOPOs. And here we completely disregarded accurate sound and just focused on readability and playability. And sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice one of those options for the others, but in this case, it is absolutely necessary to have that readability. There is a few exceptions to this rule of don't use taps. If you are charting a keyboard instrument, you absolutely have to make it all taps. You cannot use any strums or HOPOs, because a keyboard, you are pressing down on the keys, you are tapping them. There is no such thing as a strum on a keyboard. Now, if you're doing something like a saxophone or trumpet or some kind of synth instrument, if it's going to make the chart more fun to play, then you can decide to do normal charting with strums and HOPOs. Otherwise, if it's just a small part of your song, or you think it would just be better to have it as all taps, you can put it as all taps, just like you would on a keyboard. Now, I know there is a lot of information packed in there, but this is really just a foundational introduction video to these concepts and explaining why they exist and why we use them. As I keep on doing more examples throughout the videos, I will now include my logic for my forcing and what gem type I'm using, so you don't have to worry about it too much, but just keep on practicing and you will get it eventually. Anyway, that's all for this video, and next time I will be talking about how to use open notes. Until then, happy charting.